I'm going to demonstrate for you today a place that I hunt year after year that I believe is a great example of how a mature buck works a doe bedding area by working a rub line consistently year after year. I do apologize if the audio is bad. Because it's raining out, I don't want to use my microphone because it's not waterproof, so I have to use the internal mic inside my camera. I hope you understand. Let's get started, and as we're looking at these rubs and this rub line, I'm going to explain what I believe this buck is doing and why he's so hard to pursue every single year I come here to hunt. But first, let me explain the terrain we're working with. To the south, we have private land. To the east, we have private land. To the north and west, we have public land. And what we're in right now is a section just above or just north of the private land. So this buck is rubbing a whole bunch of tamarack trees that run adjacent to the doe bedding just north of the private land. And the buck is, I believe, coming from the east, which is private. I believe that's his primary bedding area, and he's only coming and rubbing these tamarack trees, which is adjacent to the doe bedding area north of the tamarack trees, during the rut phases. So I don't think he's actually living here on public land. I've scouted this public land multiple times. I haven't seen any evidence of a primary bedding area from this buck. I've seen evidence from subordinate bucks, 1.5, 2.5-year-old bucks, but not a mature buck. So behind me over there, we have doe bedding, which is in tall brown marshy grass like this, but it's much higher, and if we walk through there, you would see tons of doe beds all over. What we're seeing here is about 10 yards wide of these tamaracks, and then over there is the doe bedding to the north. So why is this intriguing? Because these tamaracks are rubbed up every single year on this rub line heading east and west, primarily heading west. Why? Because I believe he's bedding behind us to the east on private land and comes to public land just during the rut phases, because most of these rubs are on the east side of these trees, which means he's heading west while he's putting these rubs down. Not only 10 feet farther, we've got this scrape right here, deer scat on the ground. This is all rubbed up, as you can tell, just shredding this tree apart. And it's just incredible walking through here because these rubs are all over these trees. And this trail, this is a real obvious deer trail right here. He just rubs up tons of these tamarack trees adjacent to the doe bedding over there. Look at this one. Look how high that is. I'm 5'11". The middle of this rub is about to my rib cage right there. There's another one over here. It's a really nice one. Look how high he gets on there. Broke off the branch there, even broke off a branch back here with one of his tines. If you haven't seen my videos before, I look for height. I look for the average height of the rub, the middle section. That'll tell you, in my opinion, how big the buck is. I also obviously want to see rubs on bigger trees too, not just spindly little things too. And one thing you're going to notice throughout this video is that there really isn't a tree to get into. That's why this buck is so impressive, because he avoids trees. When you follow his full rut loop, which I'll talk about in a little bit, you will find that there aren't any trees really to get in, which makes it harder. Here's a rub over here. Look at that one. Just shred, and then all that pitch from the conifer tree there drips down. You got this broken tree right here that's been tipped over that he's been rubbing on. All the way up here, you can see tine marks going down this tree. And the more we continue down this path that he's using, which is very obvious, the more and more you're going to see rubs just like the ones I showed you so far. Got a real nice one right here. Look at this one. And a great big tree. I mean, a great big tree as in to rub on. Just digging down into that bark. Over here on this side as well. Again, generally heading in that west direction. Tells me the buck is working this way most of the time. All this scat right here. Tons of deer sign all over in here. It's just loaded with deer. You can see a trail where the deer come out. Made the droppings there. Another rub over here. Not super high. That could be a different buck, to be honest with you, but a lot of times these bucks like to kick the other ones out. They're so dominant. More scat right there on this trail. I find a lot of rubbing when there's a trail going back to the bedding where the does come out, or where he may go in to pursue a doe. For example, you've got a rub right here That's fresh from this year. If you've got these nice rubs back here, that's definitely from him. Then if I back up, remember we're facing that trail right there. I keep backing up, backing up, backing up. You can also see this one right here, which he's put a lot of muscle into, for sure, digging up the bark on this tree. As I look back there, it's hard to see on camera, I see two more back there through these thick tags and tamarack trees, then another little one over there. It's just mind-boggling. And then keep in mind, there's a trail that the does come out on, where he goes in on. And we've got this one too, which is on a really big tree in comparison to like tiny little spindly trees. Broke off the branch there, dug down deep into the bark over here. I can even see a little piece of hair. You can see that right there. Look at that hair still stuck on the tree from all these weeks since he's put this down. Just incredible. Got a real obvious trail going back into the thicket. Now you're going to see like popple slashings, but beyond that, where the does actually bed, that's where you got real tall brown marshy grass. I've bushwhacked my way through there and walked around in there in the off season. It's very clear does are bedding in there. And you've got this main trail coming out of the bedding, another trail here coming out of the bedding, and it leads to this rub right there on that tree, coming from those two trails. Really common, especially here on this property, to see trails coming out of bedding, which is why I'm kind of surprised this tree isn't rubbed. A lot of times if there's one tree that gets rubbed on a bedding like that, it's one of these, but this one doesn't appear to be rubbed. Just look at this trail, just beat down where this buck is going. Oh, I missed another rub over here. That tree right there. There you go. Look at, you can see this trail here as well. There's another dandy. That's a nice one. Here's a smaller rub on this tree, about 10 yards past where we just were. Again, I'm just looking at these tamarack trees as we're walking along this trail here, this deer trail. That branch is snapped off, which tells me he may have rubbed on, sure, he rubbed on that side right there a little bit. Over here, busted that branch off of that side. I'm almost on my hands and knees trying to stay underneath these tamaracks so I don't get hit in the face. This rub was from last year. I think I remember seeing this one. You can see there, it's a little bit older, but you can see that sap coming down. And this trail here, I keep following. And where does it lead? To more rubs. There's a nice one right there, nice and tall. Busted that little branch off. Really worked that one, and look at this one behind it. I like these big trees like this. They rub them because small bucks normally don't. You got this branch busted off, working it over there. If you look at it from over here, you can see even more of the rubbing going on in this tree right here. This rub, how bright that is. That's a nice one right here. If I turn around and look that way, you've got that rub over here. And then on this side, you have another one. There's three just in this one area that he's working aggressively. You've got the main trail heading this way. So we'll keep following it. If I look up over here, back to this trail, got this rub right here. Just a beast of a rub. Look at that. Took the little branch off there. All this bark completely removed right here on this tamarack tree. Kind of just weaving in and out of these trees, these tamarack trees. Got one over here. And you've got a trail that's going to go out this way and go out this way. I'm going to take it. I think I'll take it this way. You can kind of see now some of that marshy, brown marshy grass. That's what it looks like primarily back there. 75 yards back is where most of the does bed, back over there. And at north wind, any kind of north wind, it's blowing their scent this way. So he's gonna run this transition where you've got tamaracks, you got private land, tamaracks, then these tags, and with the tall brown grass mixed in that they like to bed in. We've got some trails coming through the tags where they bed primarily behind them. One of the reasons why he's so hard to hunt is because when you follow his rub line, not just where we are now, the line, but the loop where he goes around bedding on the other side, there are 0 trees to get into. You have to stay on the ground. The other option is to set up in one of these little trees right here, but then you really are exposed. Imagine yourself being up in that tree, which is super branchy, a saddle you couldn't swing around it. Sorry if you can't hear me very well, it's very windy right here. My brother sat up here a couple of years ago. He sat up here at his lone wolf stand, he's hanging on, and it's just even hard to shoot out of there, it's so branchy. And that's the biggest tree in this area. I pretty much looked at every tree in this area. Unless you bring a saw in here and start cutting branches, which is illegal and we wouldn't do, that's your only chance, really. I think he got up in there, he had a couple shooting lanes down there, but the thing is, the buck comes from just this direction, he's walking up here. You have to be super lucky, A, just to see him, but B, to not get picked off. It's really easy to get picked off up in this tree like that. And when I was hunting this buck this year, I got picked off in the ground. I was back in some brushy area on the other side of his loop, not this area, but a different spot where he goes, tucked back in this brush, sitting there with my bow, vertical, like in my lap on a tripod, and I was just sitting there like this for about 3 hours, not moving. I didn't have my bow on the ground. I didn't want to make any movements at all. I just sat there. And I was like, I'm going to look to my left to see if the deer is coming. Otherwise, I was primarily just moving my eyes because I had one shooting opening. And I didn't even get my head barely turned to my left, and he was out of there. He had me picked before I even turned my head, and I didn't move, and the wind was good. That's how aware of his environment he is. It was crazy. So, with that being said, this buck is very difficult to hunt because he doesn't like going by trees. I think that bucks learn that, especially on public land, especially in high pressure areas like this. We got this nice rub right there. A nice one coming out from some of these trails back there by the bedding. Very, very obvious. Look at this. That one's all rubbed up, the tree behind it from his tines. This tamarack tree back here, the sap running down it, that's from last year. This one is from this year. Dug way down into that bark. So we've got just high quality deer sign all over here. You can't look up in the direction we're going, which is west. You can't look that way without seeing one. I get to one rub, I see at least one, sometimes 2 or 3. Here's another one. One back there on that tree, which is nice, but the one that caught my eye more was this one right here. Look at this dandy. What a beaut. That is a really nice one there. And that little tree back there, there's also one. As I turn this way, you can't help but not see one. Look at this. Over here. So it's a dynamite area if you want to hunt the runt phases for a high quality buck. The problem is, like I said, he does not like trees. You have to stay on the ground. The wind has to be perfect, and you better not let him pick you off like he did with me. When my brother saw him a couple years ago, he was in that aspen tree I showed you with his little hang-on stand. Kind of like one like this, you know, a little one. And the buck was back in the brush on that side, so he couldn't really get a shot at it. But it's encouraging to at least see a deer like that on public land like this. It's really hard to hunt. But that's what makes it so intriguing to me. I love hunting private land. I hunt my land. I love hunting big woods. Up in northern Wisconsin, that's how I grew up hunting. My first 3 deer was shot in big woods. But then I got the niche for public land and pressured areas, not in northern Wisconsin. I don't live in northern Wisconsin, so it was just something that really intrigued me was pressured public land bucks. To me, the hardest accomplishment for whitetail deer hunting is a place like this where it gets pounded with pressure, and then to actually know where a big buck is or goes, which is also very difficult. This is not your uncle's 400 private land, you know, quote unquote deer farm that has 10 food plots and no pressure at all and redneck box blinds. And that's not my thing. I'm not into that at all. What we're doing today, oh, here's another one, a couple of them. You cannot not see them just by looking around. There's one there, up on the tree behind it. And this one, this to me is the most difficult task, is mature whitetail in pressured public land, high pressured public land. And it's not even like it never gets pressure. There's people here all the time. The beauty is that where we are now, you can tell it's kind of lowland, water and stuff, tag alders, brushy marsh grass, all that stuff. The beauty is I don't see sign of humans here where this buck is going. Why? Because there aren't trees and people want to hunt out of trees. I don't blame them. It's better for scent. It's better for sight. It lets you be a little bit more aware of what's going on around you. You can get away with movement a little bit more. I totally understand. However, if you're going to hunt this buck, in my opinion, you almost have to be on the ground. Unless there's a tree I'm missing somewhere in his loop. So he keeps going this way. You can see this obvious trail I'm walking on right now. Got some, now you're starting to see the habitat change a little bit. You got some tags mixed in. There's a rub on that tree right there. That one that's on an angle. He just keeps working it. But I want to show you this one over here, because this is more impressive. Look at that. Just gouging that, the middle of my chest, if not higher. Now it's the top of his rack, so you expect the tines to get that high. But look at that. Incredible. Big tree, nice and high. Broken branches. Another one right there. All the way down here, just digging in to the bark on this tree. That's impressive. I've got about 50 or 75 yards left to go, and I guarantee you we're going to see tons more rubs just like we did already. But I think you get the idea of how this buck is working this particular bedding area. A really quick note, I am starting a big woods series coming up, probably 4 or 5 videos about hunting the big woods in Wisconsin, which is how I actually started hunting many years ago. So if you don't want to miss that, or you want to be encouraged to go out and hunt the big woods of wherever you live, you might want to stick around, but make sure you subscribe so you can follow along the journey for that one. I appreciate you supporting the channel. Please let me know if you have any tips down in the comments about how I can pursue this deer a little bit better, or if you have any questions about what you saw in today's video that may not have been clear to you as I was explaining it. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it.